All right, so I'm going to start our recording now. And as I mentioned, my name is Sarah Ellen Hickel. I am with Pikes Peak Library District. I am the Family Place Librarian at Library 21C. And we have based this series off of a series that we do in person when we do in-person library programs called our Family Place Playgroups. And at our Family Place Playgroups, we would invite different community resource professionals to our program who would be able to answer questions of parents one-on-one during the program. So this is our way of being able to offer that service to our patrons even now when we're doing virtual programs. And I'm going to go ahead and close the poll that I have up on the screen and share the results. It looks like we have a whole gamut of folks in attendance. We have a couple babies, a 1-year-old, a couple 2-year-olds, 5-year-old, and some folks have kids who are over 6. And there's at least one who's pregnant. So welcome all of you. And again, please feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A below. I'm going to stop the share results and introduce our panelists today. So today we have Madam Barbara, and she is a presenter with Music Lingua. She's a French instructor, and she also uses sign language in Music Lingua. I'm going to let her tell her a little bit more about herself in just 1 minute. I also want to share that we have Gabby Seeger with us today, and she is an instructor with Sound Beginnings. So they are both a wealth of knowledge, and I'll let them tell you a little bit more about their backgrounds now. Madam Barbara, would you like to start us off?
I would love to. Bonjour. Hello, everybody. Barbara, and I am a French music lingua teacher here in Colorado Springs. And I have really enjoyed all of my interactions with our local library. I've been doing free programming, doing free French classes, and participating in the Family Place programs with Sarah Ellen for quite a few years, and I've really enjoyed it. So Music Lingua is a curriculum that teaches languages to children using music. And it's available in Spanish, German, and French. So I do the French here in Colorado Springs, and it's a very simple premise. We use music to teach languages because it's the same side of the brain. And I do a lot of baby sign language because we have very young children, newborns, up to about 8 to 10. The kids start aging out of the curriculum, but it's very play oriented. And we use the baby sign language because so many kids are already language learners. Even in utero, they're learning languages, and we want to just use what they can as we go along. And I've just really enjoyed it. I've been teaching going on a decade now. So this is, I'm very passionate about it. And I can get into more of the nuts and bolts of how, when, why, and where we do that, but I'll let Gabby introduce herself.
You want me to go right now, Sarah Ellen? Okay. All right. Well, I'm Gabby Seeger, and I've been teaching music for a long time. I am the homeschooling mom of 4. My youngest is now 7. My oldest is 12. And music has been a huge part of my entire life. I love it because of the healing aspects. And especially through this tricky time we've been with the whole COVID-19 epidemic or pandemic, we have all been feeling a little bit more stress. And I have found this runaround, the way that I coped with it was through music. And so I stopped my classes, right, meeting in person, but we did continue to meet online. And I want to tell you what a gift and what a joy it was to continue to work with those kids, even through a distance, and to see the joy that they were still able to get even in a stressful time when everybody was feeling it. So I teach 2 programs. It's all through Let's Play Music, which is, I love Let's Play Music. It's amazing. Here is the website if you want to go to it, my email, and there's a couple other teachers in town. You can go there and click on my picture. You can email me or the other teachers in town. Let's Play Music site, site.com, has more information there. But this is The Sound Beginnings, it's a program for 0 to 4-year-olds. And then once they hit 4, they can go into the older, the piano program. It's a 3-year program, 4 to 6 years old, where they actually learn piano. But I think we're just talking about the little kids this time. So 0 to 4 years old, we know that the music starts in utero, even before they're born. So what we do here is learning happens best when a mom or a parent, a caregiver is with that child. So we learn everything through music. I think you can probably remember when you were a kid, the things that you remember the most are the things that were set to music. So we learn, for example, we'll learn our ABCs. This is the workbook. Each semester is just 4 months or 15 lessons. The semesters that we have in Sound Beginnings are non-sequential, which means you can join or stop anytime per semester. Each semester will focus on a different theme. So one, White Horses, we had focusing on friendship. One focuses on the shapes and colors. Just a lot of fun. Most of these songs are folk tunes with the so me, which is the first interval that we all learn. It's the whole, remember, na 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 na. It's that pitch. It's a minor third. And when we can sing that first, that's what opens up the other intervals for good singing. So it's really a complex singing program, music program, that focuses on so many different things. We've got our pre-reading skills where we're doing our ABCs. Each child gets their own workbook. We tracked, so the children are pointing along with the parent helping them. So we're getting those pre-reading skills in there. They do in the Black Spider semester that we just finished, we learned the months of the year. We always will learn solfege, hand signs, and then of course the American Sign Language that goes along with the letters and a little bit. So every other semester we focus on different scales, either the major scale or the pentatonic scale, which all of the folk tunes are made out of because it's so ethereal and so calming for children. We learn bells, so we're learning to really focus our ear skills. And like we were talking about, we learn music first in utero. That heartbeat of the mom is where we feel the strong, soft, strong, soft. So we're getting that pulse that is prevalent in music. We also learn the different instrument families. They learn to recognize them. We learn literacy and kindergarten skills, the rhythm and beat, vocal pitch development, fine motor skills with some of the small finger plays that we do with the parent, gross motor skills. They get introduced to classical music, and parent bonding. So it's very important that a parent be with the child, loving that child, so that child learns to grow and love. Anyways, I was going to say also every other semester we introduce a little bit of a foreign language. So we've done the White Horses, let me think, Silver Buttons, we had French. Pink Piggies, we had a little bit of Spanish, and then Gold Stars, which is coming up. That one is going to be a little bit of Chinese. So what they do is take a few of the folk tunes, some of the well-known songs from that culture and bring it in. So the kids kind of get a little bit of a culture experience. So it's a lot of fun. And this is one of everybody's favorite parts. This is Echo Edie. Hello. And she gets the kids who might otherwise not say anything to copy her. So she'll make sounds like woo, which is actually really good for speech pathology, for developing those developing the musculature of the mouth. So that's another really amazing aspect of this. Every song we teach has a purpose. So it's really exciting, and I'm excited to be here and share a little bit more about this with you.
Thank you, Madam Barbara and Gabby. And we do have a question in our Q&A, so I'm going to go ahead and read that to you, ladies. Our first question is from someone who is asking that their 22-month-old is showing extreme interest in playing the guitar. The child practices with a tiny plastic dollar store guitar. Are there any steps that the parent should take in helping him learn to play?
Yeah, I'll chime in on that one first. That's so fantastic. Children love music. And I applaud you for already getting your child a guitar to play with. That's the first step, getting the motivation. So the next step might be some percussion, some not necessarily get a new instrument, but practice clapping a beat, and then have your child copy back. Introduce them to the scale, to the major scale, or sometimes the children's toys, they don't keep the tune very well, but they can strum. So maybe clap a beat and then have your child strum, and have them copy that. That will start to develop some musicality that way. I don't know, what else are you thinking, Barb?
Well, you're the musical expert, but there's a lot of things that as you were talking, I'm like, oh yes, that's exactly where we're at too. Kids learn in utero, and we can remember songs from our childhood, but I can't remember where my keys are, and so. Right. So it's the same thing, so we use music really intentionally, because even just adults who are learning along with their kids, they're like, oh, we're learning we're counting with a song, and that would have made it so much easier to remember all the words in French on counting, because then you just kind of, it's right there in your brain. Whereas if you're just trying to remember text, it doesn't sit in your brain as well. And I really encourage families to do as many languages as you can. And we really encourage families to listen to international kids music. And the reason we do that, and there's so many, I have one program that I really like is the Putumayo. But whatever you're using on your phone to listen to music for yourself, you can just ask it for some international kids music. And if kids are singing songs in foreign languages, they're actually reproducing the sounds of language. And singing along is a great way to do it, even if you don't know what you're singing. My kids and I used to do this, and I had no idea what we were singing, but we were getting all of this crazy sounds of languages. And the reason you want to do it while they're young is their brains are actually capable of reproducing the sounds of languages. And I often ask families to do a little experiment with me, because in French, the French R is actually a growl sound in your throat. It goes, Arr. And if you ask an adult who's never made that sound, and maybe even never really heard the sound, they really struggle to reproduce that sound, because our brains are just wired differently. They're finished with this extraordinary ability to reproduce sound. And I wish it wasn't so, because I would love to learn more languages, especially like Mandarin, but my ears, I can't really hear all of the tones, and I cannot reproduce them. And it's sort of the same thing as a musical ear. And we don't hear it very often, but different generations before us, many people were tone deaf because they hadn't been exposed to music as a child. And I tease my mom a little bit. She grew up without having a radio in the house, and her singing is a little bit, but she tries, so it's a neurological thing. So, it goes hand in hand with the idea that parents don't wait until your kids are in high school to learn languages. Their brains are wired for learning languages very, very young, even before their mouths are capable of reproducing some of the language sounds. They're learning language through sign language and their eye contact, and it's all spinning up in their brains. And as they grow, that ability to reproduce sounds and to learn how to say words with the same meaning, there's a there's a neural pathway there that gets stimulated. So the more you can stimulate it when they're young, the better. And science says at about age 8, those abilities start snipping away. They're not completely erased, but by the time your brain is fully formed in your early 20s, it's really solidified, and those neural pathways won't have the opportunity to connect. And of course, we know that people that speak more than one language are more creative, they're faster cognitively. It goes on and on. You can Google up all the science behind it, but we know that the bilingual, multilingual brains are they're structured differently, and they're a little bit faster thinkers. So give that gift to your children, if not for being able to talk to lots of people in the world, but to have that neurological advantage. And music is a language. Gabby talked about the different solfege and those different languages. That's a whole nother language too. So my kids grew up learning piano and reading music, and that's a whole nother language for them that they can speak and read and write. So do what you can when you can while your kids are young. That's what I always say. So I will
Absolutely.
stop talking.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. I'm going to share this real quick. I have this picture, if you can see that. So this shows the picture of a brain, a baby's brain, newborn. There's not very many neurons, but as the child gets a little older, these neurons, what they do is they start connecting. So what Madam Barbara was telling us was that when you have a child who's hearing a language, there's some homes that have two parents are speaking two different languages, or you're listening to different shows in a variety of different languages, or you do the music lingua or the sound beginnings with some of the different songs, or you just hear it in the marketplace. We just hear people speaking different things. The more your brain hears that, the more they connect. Now, what happens is this happens for the music window. It's up to about 6 or 7, and then it starts to close. The language window will close about age 9. So we don't have a lot of time. It's their childhood, and we all know it's gone so quickly. But and then the ones that don't connect, those are the ones that start dying off, and then those other ones can get stronger because we can focus. What was I going to tell you? I was going to say, I love that because research has shown that, and that we're all learning this, that the children, they are at a very vital stage to have these experiences. But it's not to say that you can't learn anything. I started learning the cello. I do play music, and I went to college for vocal performance. I play ukulele, violin, just whatever. And the first instrument you learn is the easiest. Then each succeeding instrument is going to be a little bit easier. But I just started learning cello when my last baby was born. So maybe 6-7 years ago. And it was harder. I mean, it was easy because I already knew the foundation, but I'm just saying that when you learn another instrument when you're older, it is going to be a little harder because we're not in that window of learning so quickly. We're sponges when we're children. But then as we grow up, those neurons, they kind of get hardened and solidified, and it's harder to let new concepts come in. But there is a really excellent book called The Talent Code, and I'm thinking his name, Daniel, I can't remember the last name. That book is fantastic for an adult who wants to learn. This guy, Daniel, I can't remember his last name. He goes in depth about really what it is. Is it talent, or is it the ability to make good habits and to learn exactly what it is that you need to learn? So as an adult wanting to learn music, that might be something you want to take a look at. Just that it's the practice, the determination, the motivation, and the gumption to stick to it. So those are some fun things. It's never too late to learn, but it's the best time when they're babies and little.
It's true. And I often tell parents that want to do languages with their kids, if they have a language, by all means do it. And I often get a question of, well, will they be confused? And no, they won't be confused. And I have all kinds of examples of families that dad speaks one language, mom speaks another language, and then they have English. I have a family that's doing 5 languages.
I actually have a few questions about that. Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you ladies because we are starting to get some questions in on the Q&A in the chat, and I want to make sure to get through some of these. I have a patron who said that they have to leave in a few minutes, and so I'm going to ask their question now. And what they were asking is, what are some ways to introduce music, in particular piano, to a 4-year-old?
Okay, I'll start that because it's piano. I'm like, that's my thing. So the solfege, you want to teach them, you want to train them. 4 years old at the piano can be a little frustrating because their fingers are so tiny. They haven't quite developed yet. So what you want to do at that young age, let them play at the piano, let them play. You can what we do, I probably should have had some bells here. We use tone bells. Here's a picture of them that's not colored, but we use, just an xylophone with the bells so that they start to hear. Piano keys, those are going to be a little bit difficult for a child, a little bit overwhelming because their fingers can't stretch, but they can hold a mallet in their hand and hit the bells. So the bells are color coordinated: red, orange, yellow, green, light blue, dark blue, purple, and then red again for the octave, for the C again, for do again. So what you could do is put on your piano the corresponding colors to the bells. That's one idea that you could do. Another thing, well, I'll share this really cute thing that we do in our piano. So we start at age 4 in our piano program. And this is how we learn the notes to start reading the staff. So here's our staff, but instead of calling it a staff, so children will learn through experience and play first. So that's what we do first before we label anything, because otherwise they're not going to remember. They will remember a song and they'll remember a fun experience. So there's a really cute song we sing about a balloon going up, 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 and it floated and I wanted to come back. And then we just down, 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 down. And so, well, we don't want to count backwards because music is going to be in the same direction that we read. So we're still tracting. This is still pre-reading. You know, music is still pre-reading skills. Did I do that right? Am I missing a line or a space? Yes. So that's how we introduce the major scale, but getting them to hear those interval differences. Developing their ear at this time is so, so vital. Trying to think what else. Teach them some rhythms. A cute thing, I don't have my Let's Play music stuff right handy, but we teach them in the Let's Play music program, the 4 to 6 year olds, we teach them the rhythms. So we'll count caterpillar, beetle, you know, for the 16th note. So they're actually learning to clap and recognize these tricky rhythms, and butterfly or grasshopper for the 8th and 16th notes. So get them to learn some fun things not in a let's sit down and let's play music and be serious. Do it with fun, do it with movement, get them to feel the beat with a scarf. With the piano, you can sing a note or you can play a note and then let them try to go find it on the keyboard. Maybe with bells, you can play a note and then have them go match that pitch on the keyboard. And like I was saying earlier, it's that minor third, the ba-ba, that is going to be essential for them to be able to sing later in life. And a lot of the old musicians, a lot of the music masters, they've said, if you can't sing it in tune, you can't play it in tune. You have to be able to hear it. So that minor third, helping them recognize that is going to help them with those oral skills that they'll need for any instrument. So
that's really interesting,
sure
Gabby.
Yeah.
That's so great. All right, I have another question here. There's actually a couple questions about language, and so I'm going to read both of them, Madam Barbara, and maybe you might be able to answer both at the same time. The one is, I've heard parents who are raising their children in a bilingual home say that one parent always speaks English to the child and the other speaks the second language. How important, if at all, is it for a parent to only speak one language to the child? And they have a situation that they took several years of French in college but don't speak it well personally. They can say French words and phrases they know, and then the word and phrase. So what are your thoughts on speaking 2 languages to the child, one of which is maybe only certain limited words? Also, there's another comment from a family who they want their children to learn a second language, but neither husband or spouse are bilingual. So what do you recommend to start teaching their 2.5-year-old a second language?
Okay. Oh, there's a lot to unpack here. Okay.
Yes.
So I always say for the parents that are not bilingual currently, I always say that parents that are learning languages have kids that are learning languages, and it's not too late to learn. In fact, there's studies that say that adults who practice languages, they can delay the onset of dementia by practicing languages. So it's better than Sudoku. So it's really good for adult brains too, because there's all these neural pathways being lit up when you're speaking languages. It kind of, your whole brain is working. So parents, learn languages and learn them with your kids. But I will say, if you're doing languages with your kids, and so many bilingual, multilingual families struggle when their kids get to a certain age, that the kids don't want to do it anymore. They just want to speak English. And I will attest to that myself. We will have French gatherings and all the adults are in the kitchen speaking French and the kids are off playing in English, even though they're bilingual. So my advice to the bilingual people, and you can do this too if you're learning as well, find their favorite game. Maybe it's something simple like Candyland, or what's another good one? Candyland. Well, I'll just use Candyland as an example and say, oh, let's play your favorite game. And we're going to do it in the target language. And if they have a little resistance, but make it fun, put your fun face on. And we see the parents, that are doing a language and they say, put your shoes on, get out the door, da, 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 da. They're doing orders like that. The kids usually shut down. But if you're making it a fun thing and you put your fun face on and you're playing a game and maybe there's ice cream after the game is over, that always helps to get them. And kids love it. Kids love to get that part of their parents out. And I do encourage parents to do their native language. I can't tell you how many families I've met where the bilingual or parent is saying, well, our pediatrician said we should just teach them English. And that's really an old thing. If you're in the United States, they're going to learn English, even though you as much as you try to isolate them, the English will come. So do your native language if you have it. Or I know Americans that speak other languages and they are English speakers, they have a second language and they've just decided, I'm not going to speak the English major language where we're living. I'm going to speak that other language to the child. And I've had lots of conversations with multilingual households, and the child will, it's really interesting. The child will look at Papa and speak whatever his language is, and then they'll look at Mama and speak her language. And sometimes they'll even translate for the parents. There's a whole bunch of power there too, that the kids can do that, and they can do it so well. And for some of my parents that are learning along with the kids in French, they often ask me, oh, but Madam Barbara, my accent is terrible. And it's not their fault, it's their brain, right? That what we talked about earlier is it's much harder for adults to get the sound down. It's not impossible, it just takes a lot more work. And I often tell parents not to worry about your accent, but it's your behavior. If you're modeling learning the language and you're making it really fun, and this is a family project, we're all going to learn French. And some families even say, and then we're going to go to Canada or to France or to a French speaking place to travel. The kids get really excited about that too. But there's a thing called code switching. And I like to use my husband as an example. He's from the South, and I did not meet him in the South. We met overseas, and he speaks sort of like me. And when we go back to the South, his accent changes. It's almost like, he went to the rental car agency and he came back speaking in a different way with the Southern accent. And I always tease him like, did she say honey to you? And he's like, well, so we do this without even knowing to code switch. And so somewhere along the line, kids will understand what the common denominator accent is. So maybe your parent had a funny word that they spoke because of their immigration status. Mine did. And we still, sort of tease them about the certain words that they say with a little, but you code switch as a child, they eventually gravitate to the appropriate accent. And even expats that have moved from country to country, they sort of, or if you move to the South in the United States, you kind of slide into different word choices and accents. So parents that are learning right along, don't worry if you're not saying the word properly. Your kids will correct you because they get it, they get the accent, they get it perfectly the right time because their brains are so good at doing that. So just whatever you do, model fun learning. And Gabby's hit it on the head so many times that they're having fun and there's a story involved. And music lingual, we do a lot of experiential playing. We pretend, that like this week we were pretending we were being a lion, and we do a lot of dress up and we do a lot of toys and props, and just make it as fun as you can. And you have so many things. Technology is amazing. We have these wonderful computers in our pockets all the time, and I always encourage parents, just make it a game. And how do you say that? And you can ask the device, but always use the article. So if you want to know how to say table, you say a table. or the table, and then it'll come back with the article, which is really important for the Romance languages because you want to know if it's a feminine or masculine word, and then turn it around. So it'll, if you say the table, it'll say la table, and then switch it back and you say it in French. For example, you say la table. And if it doesn't come back the table, then listen again and keep trying. So you have an automatic language coach right here. I could be really long-winded about this, so bear with me. And parents, there's so many things online. There's Duolingo, which is a great little app. It reminds you to do it. And for bigger kids, they can do this. The library here in Colorado Springs, Pikes Peak Public Library, I don't have my sheet to show up, but there's something called Mango Languages. It's very similar to Rosetta Stone. So if you go to the website and you Google up or search up Mango languages or language training, your library card will unlock this amazing language learning program. You can learn all kinds of
And it's
language.
totally free. Yeah.
It's free. Yeah, there's so many free things. I mean, there are so many free things. In addition to listening to international kids music, I often ask kids to tell me what their favorite movie is. And they always have an answer, or whatever the show that they like to watch. And so it might be something on a DVD. Maybe it's a show that you stream. Frozen is still very popular. And so parents, if you need to go make that phone call or make dinner, play the favorite show to your kids, but just change the settings and give it to them in a different language. Kids are so good at language learning. They know what the character is going to say if it's their favorite, and you've fed them the character's words in another language, and they're like, boom, that's how you say it in whatever language. So there's a lot of easy things that you can do at home, and it's not as interactive and fun as doing a French class with Madame Barbara, but there's so much available to you in your homes that are, really low thresholds of, to get into and do for free. So I encourage you to do whatever you can, when you can, how you can. If I can make a little plug, I do a free trial class with the library a lot. And I was really excited that now that we've all gone virtual, I've been teaching my classes online since March. It's a recorded lesson with a live Zoom class, and the kids do crafts at home each week, and they have a workbook that they color in. And so we get together and they show me their craft that they made this week, and they show me their workbook that they've been working in as a reinforcement. But on December 5th, on the Pikes Peak Library District YouTube channel, I believe it's PPLD YouTube. Oh, sorry, Ellen, I have to help me.
It's PPLD TV. Yes.
TV, that's it. PPLD TV on YouTube. I will be there on December 5th doing a trial sort of free class. We're going to be doing the Itsy Bitsy Spider, and you can tune in with your kids and watch it over and over and over again. So I encourage.
And those videos, they go on YouTube, and then they're there for a while. So if you can't tune in on December 5th, it'll still be there on the 6th.
And you can learn a lot more. I do have a website. You can find me going to the Music Lingua website, but I also have my own website. It's called springsfrench.com. So I dropped the Colorado off of Colorado Springs. So it's springsfrench.com. And you can learn, I have a list of all kinds of free and paid online resources to learn languages for adults, for young kids, for, the whole gamut. And then there's also information about what I might be doing online. I do a lot of free introductory things, and then I have ongoing classes as well. So there's just a plethora of things that you can learn on springsfrench.com, because we might not be able to get all the words in today.
All right. So I have another couple questions. And for those of you who have already asked questions, if you have further questions or if you want more clarification, please do continue to add those into the Q&A. It looks like we do have a clarifying question from the one parent. So is it okay to speak French to my 6-month-old, even if I only know certain words and phrases?
Absolutely. And you know what's really fun for the kids that are pre-verbal is if you are learning the sign language as well, and you can put this, so it's and I use a lot of sign language because neurologically the child is moving and sometimes they can get the word in their head, but they can't quite express back to you that it's there. And so I love Baby Signing Time is really a great program for you to learn right along with your child, and it can start easily with, eat, and you could say manger, we're all done, say fini, and do it in both English and French if you'd like to. But then they're like, oh, you said it in English, you said it in French, and you're doing the sign language for it. Their brains will go crazy. Another one that I really like, and you can get these at the library too, is Little Pim. Actually, Signing Times too, if you can access your library, their DVD programs. But I believe they're also Amazon Prime. You can stream those. And Little Pim speaks all kinds of languages. So if you want to focus on French, you can do the French Little Pim, and it's really engaging. I don't encourage a lot of video time for really young ages, but as your child grows, and we all need to make dinner and make that phone call. So that's, if you're going to use screen time, I always say to be really intentional about it. But yeah, absolutely do whatever you can and do the languages. There's a question I often get that I haven't heard in this forum today, but a lot of families will say, well, isn't it true that if I do more than one language with my child, their speaking will be delayed? And that has pretty much been debunked by the scientists. And my own perspective on it is I think it's more of like a personality of your child. Children that are perfectionists by nature may not speak any language early. They may decide they need to have it perfected in their little brains before it comes out. Whereas you may have a more of a risk-taking child who is going to try all kinds of things, and then you'll find that they're very verbal and they're trying all kinds of things to express themselves. So every kid develops in different ways at different paces, and they love languages. Their brains are on fire. So do as many languages with them as you can. And like I said, I have a family that says 5 languages, and it's fun and fabulous.
I'll just throw out there, those are fantastic resources. And as you go with your child to do different classes or to learn a new thing, your child looks at you and they're like, mom's doing that, or dad's doing that, or grandma, their caretaker, whoever's taking them. They're like, that's an adult thing to do. I want to do that too. And it really bridges that gap of parent-child. And so it's quite a bonding, such a bonding experience. And it provides some motivation for your child to keep going and to want to do that because you're doing that. That's a big person thing to do.
Right.
I have one question from a parent who wants to know if you have any further tips on encouraging children to practice speaking a foreign language and forming those sounds. From their experience, it is much easier to understand someone else who is speaking than to reproduce the sound yourself. And I think you might have covered that a little bit more, but if you have any other tips.
Absolutely. So, I love the music side of language learning. And if you can find some international kids music that is catchy and you sing with them, right? So if they see you're just listening as the caregiver and you're not singing along, they may not feel comfortable singing along. So model the behavior that you want from your child and you'll see them perk up and do exactly what you're doing. So if you have the international music on and you're singing it, even you don't know what the words are, but they're catchy, sing it loud, sing it soft, make it really fun, and they will emulate that too. So that's one side of it. And then there's a conversational side, right? And it's really much harder to get kids to express themselves in a foreign language by watching, the movie in another language. That's clearly a one-directional thing. So really, if you can be like, use the Candyland experience, that's a really easy one to play, and you can get your colors and your numbers down pretty easily, even just using a Google Translator. I'm thinking about things that you could do without me. Of course, in my French classes, I'm asking them to repeat sounds. When we do in-person classes, toys are a huge portion of our class time. And so they may want to hold whatever the toy is And of course, I don't have one right next to me. And so, I would say, oh, would you like this toy? Would you, and I would say, this is what it's called in French. And then they would repeat, what the word is in French, and then they would get to hold and play with it. And then when we do our song activity, when it's time for the gorilla or whatever they have, then they would get to show the gorilla because they are acknowledging the sound of the gorilla, and that's what that is. And then when they give it back to me, they would say gorille, for example. So there's a lot of forced questioning and little tricky trick things that we do in person in class to get the kids to express themselves. And then pretty soon, we teach in snippets of language, and that's how we learn as babies. So it might be, the first word might be mama or papa, and then maybe it's eat, so mama eat, or maybe it's bye bye, mama bye bye. And so we do little snippets of language in French, and the kids naturally just put those snippets together. And I like to tell a story of a military family that was here with me for, they took about 9 months of classes with me. And then they moved to Europe, and on their way to Europe, they stopped in New York and they took the boat over, but they were in a fancy restaurant up in a skyscraper, and they were coming down in the elevator, and their son heard somebody speaking another language. She didn't know they were speaking French, but he cued into it right away. And he had enough snippets of language to be, and he was like three or four at the time, really outgoing little personality. And he would say, how are you? My name is, did you eat? Was your food good? C'est bon, it was really good for me. He just used what he had because he's like, oh, they're speaking French. I'm gonna use all my snippets of language and do it. Kids are just fabulous like that. So never underestimate what kids can learn, and do as much interaction as you can do, and you can make it fun as a language learning yourself, or if you have some of the language in your belt, do more. I've heard people that put the words up on the wall and all of this, and so for the kids that aren't reading quite yet, that might not hit them, but you can play all kinds of games. And I really encourage parents that are taking French classes with me to do things at home, and maybe using the bedtime song that we're using in class. And like Gabby, we have thematic, you can start anywhere you want. We're going to an African safari right now. And this summer we went to the ocean, and in the spring we're going to explore forest animals in the winter. And so we always do colors and numbers and greetings and things like that, but we really build on vocabulary and verbs. And some of the songs, like there's a "where is it" song, and so you can really take that to another level by hiding things. Or maybe you say, where is this in the house, and then you go find it, and then you repeat the word. Maybe it's I don't know, the bed, le lit. Oh, où est le lit? And then you go find le lit, and make it just as, whatever sparks them. Like you know your children better than any teacher does. So if you know what they really like, or maybe they're an outdoor kid and you can really go exploring, go to the zoo and name all the animals in whatever language you're wanting to target. Kids love that they come back, Madam Barbara, I went to the zoo and we named all the animals in French, and maybe they didn't even know all of them from my class, but they had their little translator in their back pocket and they really expanded their knowledge. So
those are some wonderful tips, Madam Barbara. All right, I'm gonna move on to a new question. No, you guys this is great. We're getting a couple more questions in the Q&A. So I have a question, and it's specifically for a 2-year-old. How do I teach my 2-year-old music? So if there's any tips on introducing music to 2-year-olds, please chime in.
Right. There's a lot of things you can do with a 2-year-old. That's your baby. And I love that age, 18 months to like 3. I think that was my favorite age because they're ready to explore. So percussion instruments are fantastic. It teaches them the cause and effect. So do a drum or on your leg, or a clap, and have them copy you back. Now, another thing that we do is, like I showed you a minute ago with the puppet, get a puppet. And it's best if they can open their mouth like this, because then they can see I'm talking, right? And so you can make your puppet say or sing something. And this is actually something we do in sound beginnings. The older class, Let's Play Music, is so me. And then the child will copy so me. And then let's see what else. Mi, re, do, mi, re, do. And then something else you can do, this is something we use in the workbook, but it's just a picture of pages, a page of pictures, and you can have your child point to one. So here's a duck on here, so you can say quack quack, or your child can just say it, or a cat, meow, or an ambulance siren, woo. All these different things that the siren will help get the, what am I saying, I forgot the word, the head voice. So all these kind of different things, but this turns it into play, like using a puppet, using a toy. And that's one of the biggest things with this age, 0 to 7, or, the young, is if it's play and if it's fun, those neurons that I talked about earlier, those are growing and connecting because it's fun, it's being presented in a memorable way. So other things you can do, like here's, I don't know if you can see these up there, they're the different instrument families. I used to take my kids to, well, I couldn't take them all, they were all about a year apart, but I wanted them to have cultural nights. So we did cultural night at home, just as a family. Sometimes we'd get dressed up, sometimes we wouldn't, but we'd turn on an orchestra or a symphony or an opera on YouTube. And so it's free, we'd get our little refreshments out, and we would listen to different instruments or different things. There's lots of resources on YouTube that are just free. Lots of like a lot of the different philharmonics. Now the philharmonic that I was playing in before the COVID all shut it down was just the community. What was it called? Pikes Peak Philharmonic, and they're not very expensive and very family friendly. So if you can find tickets, in town that are not expensive, take your whole family. They are learning so much. So even like Madam Barbara was saying, also with the music and the language, they're not saying anything, right? We just think those babies are just laying there and we can't tell what they're doing because they're not too verbal. So much is going on in their brains. So you play those instruments, if you play an instrument, you get your instrument out. And in fact, that's the Suzuki method. The parent learns first, and then the child will copy the parent. And so it's really important that you be excited about it. That's also something I've learned with homeschool. If you're excited about it, your kids want to learn it. And so, be excited about music. Something we do is it's called Smart Moves. This is just a color page from the Frog Dance, was what we called it. It's the Infernal Gallop by Jacques Offenbach. And there's a dance to it. And so you're a frog and you jump and you turn into different things and you catch the flies. And so use these gross motor skills and dance with your child. Every child loves to dance and play. So those are some things. I'm like, what are some other things? There's, I don't know, just, anytime something musical comes on, or if we're watching any activity or program, bring your child, say, oh, look, this is so cool. Look, I love that instrument. I love that violin, or I love that sound. And the library, hopefully things can start opening back up, but the library has amazing music programs too. We've seen, there was a bagpiper that came in, and that was fun. He sang some songs that actually we sing in our curriculum, in the 4 to 6 year old curriculum. And so I invited my students, I said, you've got to go to this program. And so it's exciting when they learn something in class and then they hear it out in the open world, like Madam Barbara's student who recognized the language. Those synapses are forming, and the more we can make them, strengthen them through play and experience, the more they'll recognize them, they'll get stronger, and they'll, be good at it. So lots of fun things. Just share the joy with them.
I was going to add too, for a 2-year-old, anytime you can do music and movement together. So maybe it's the head, shoulders, knees, and toes song, and they're singing that, or I think about when I was a kid, it was the teapot that tipped over, the itsy bitsy spider.
All those great folk tunes.
Yeah, whatever they can do that's moving, or even if you just have a scarf. But I found that at that age group, the more that you can move, and going back to my zoo example, maybe you don't just say the animal's name, but what does the animal do? Maybe the giraffe is stretching its neck or sticking its tongue out, and any kind of movement thing. But you'll find, and watch your children, especially have babies. in the room, when they hear another language being spoken, they really perk up, and they also really respond to different kinds of music. So you might find that soothing music makes them behave in one way, where if you kind of give them some Led Zeppelin or something a little more lively, that might shake them up. Or it's just really fascinating to see how babies react, and they have all those neurons going, and they're very interested and things that are different like that. So expose your babies as much as you can to different sounds and music.
Definitely, definitely. All right, I have 2 questions in our Q&A. We have about 5 minutes left, so let's do some rapid fire answering here. The first one is, my 5-year-old is starting to learn French, but there are certain words that she doesn't like to say due to their meaning in English. For example, she doesn't want to say the French word for doll because it sounds like poop. Any suggestions to overcome this bias?
Oh, I love that she
Okay.
won't say it, because most of my kids, we do talk about dolls, and in French it's called poupée. And the kids think that is hysterical that they can say poupée, and I encourage them to say poupée and to rock their baby dolls. So I love that your daughter is just not quite ready for that yet, and that's okay. And she can maybe call it.
Why don't we call it Le Petit Bébé instead,
Yeah,
or
exactly. If she's not comfortable with poupée, then you could say baby, my baby. So just go with the flow. And I really recommend, like, when you have a child that stops and I'm making a stand for things, don't try to push them off their spot, but rejoice and celebrate that place and give them alternatives. And like, oh, that's okay. And I was always like, oh, you don't want to hug Uncle Joe? That's fine. I'm not a really, if you're not ready to say the word to me, then eventually they will come, because they see how much fun it is. So don't push too hard, but really just keep inviting them to participate.
And it teaches them boundaries also. Yeah. I don't want to say that. That's okay. That's okay. Let's find something different.
Yeah.
That's healthy.
And the other kids are like, poopy all day long.
That's a great tip. All right. The last question I have right now in the Q&A is, my children started taking piano lessons, and at first it was fun, but now that it is more work, they are less motivated and complain about taking music lessons. I am afraid that if I force them to continue, their love of music will wane. So what advice do you have?
Okay, so it might depend on ages, but this is something, that's why in Let's Play Music, it's all fun and experience and play, because that's how a child learns. And then they get to the level of note reading and they're like, I can do this. But yes, for anything that's worthwhile, it takes hard work. So I wouldn't stop, because there's always people that say, I wish that my parents made me keep going, or I really regret quitting. So don't stop, but maybe find something. The Dollar Tree has little charts. We use them as job charts, or like piano charts. Every time they practice, they get a sticker. Yep. And one thing I've taught all of my kids piano, and they're pretty good. And at first, it's not fun. I have one daughter, dyslexia causes some issues. I will say that, because they can't read the notes, but their ear is incredible. So celebrate those things that they are able to do. If they only can do one piece, maybe you'll want to talk to the teacher and say, maybe scale back on the number of pieces that they're learning, maybe focus on more some ear training, some oral skills. But the rewards, bribe your kids. It really does work. For a period of time, they need something to motivate them. And then once they get there to a specific level, then they're like, oh, this is kind of fun. I can play Star Wars, or I can play Frozen, or I can play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And then there's no more outside bribery needed, because they can do it. Right. So
what at our house, Gabby, is we've done music with the kids since they were born, pretty much, and have went with the kids program, and then they went into piano. And my stand as a mom was like, you are going to take piano lessons until you hit middle school, and that's when band happens here, and then you can change instruments if you want. So I've always said, you still have to do music. And one of the takeaways I want parents to hear now is, I have so many families that come, there's so many activities that you can do with your kids, and they might have other distractions. So you can use a carrot of, you want to do karate, you have to do piano, and then you can do karate. Yes. But The other thing is when they're young, they can learn. I'm going to pick on karate. My daughter's doing karate. They can learn karate any time of their life. They can only do music and language for a very short window of time. So stand firm in having your kids do music and languages up until at least middle school. And then they can decide to change languages or change.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And with the piano, really, that is the foundational instrument because you've got that keyboard. This is do, this is re, this is C, this is D. With the instruments, it's harder because they, especially with the strings, they have to hear it. Which so piano is a very objectional instrument because you play, it's exactly what it should sound like. As long as it's in tune, make sure your instruments are in tune. But then the other instruments are subjectional, or subjective. So you're not sure if they're right. So at first, we teach a child what to do. We don't want them guessing because they don't know. So we teach them this is C, this is D. We teach them, or do, re. They hear that, and then they can, then the other instruments are easy. And that's why a lot of musicians play several instruments. They have one major instrument, and then the others, it's just easier to play because they've already got that foundation. And the theory is all the same across the board. They'll learn it fastest with piano though. So keep your child in piano. You'll be so happy and they will be so grateful that you did.
Absolutely.
Those are just wonderful tips. Oh my goodness, this hour has flown by. We are going to be saying goodbye here soon, but I'd like to remind those, we had a lot of new participants join us. I want to remind you, please do look for the email from me later this afternoon. I will be sending out a link that will be a survey for our panel today. And when you fill out that survey, that is your entry into both our weekly gift card drawing. Our gift card drawing is going to be for $50 this week, as well as the grand prize drawing for the whole series, which is a 6-month KiwiCo crate subscription that you get to choose based on your child's age. And we're going to be doing 3 of those at the end of the series. We also have one more program in the series next Thursday, same time. And that program, I believe we are going to have specialists in speech and development. So please do register for that. I will include a registration link to that in the email that I send out this week. And we look forward to seeing you again. This has been such a tremendous time. I know that Madam Barbara and Gabby Seeger are both so wonderful at answering these questions. I bet that if you guys have further questions, feel free to email me and I will pass them on to our presenters,
Absolutely.
our panelists, and I will get you in touch with them. In fact, I'll include their contact information in the email I send out so you can email them directly, because I'm sure they would be happy to answer more questions from you guys, since we were going at a pretty quick clip with our questions and answers today. So thank you all so much for participating. I'm going to go ahead and end our program today, but we look forward to having you again. Oh, let me see. There's one last Q&A. We have a thank you. We've had several thank yous from participants. So thank you all for joining in. Thank you, Madam Barbara, and thank you, Gabby, for joining us. We just have learned so much today. So I hope you all have a great week. Thanks.
Bravo. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.